Welcome to a Formula Asphalt Remastered commentary. This is Hungary in Season 5, and we're heading towards Turn 1 with 15 cars barreling towards Turn 1. We have in the lead for Mint Castrol ahead of one of the Williams. There's a bit of contact there, I think, with one of the Ferraris maybe, and also one of the Mercedes. So Joe, the second of the Ferraris, as we have the Haas 3 wide with one of the V-Carbs and his teammate. That's James hitting his teammate and also hitting MMR. Here comes Joe then. He's trying to have it out with Glock Baby, otherwise known as Fate. And he's going to go around the outside up into P12 and through on turn 5. He goes wide. He tries not to get run into, but they head round the turn 5 hairpin. And there's a big Constantine. I think AJC may have made a mistake there. He's side by side with one of the Alpines. They head through the chicane. There's nearly contact with one of the Red Bulls. And round for Ashley Curtis. And also round for one of the Hasses. I think that's Luxy or Sabrina Carpenter who's round. That's incredible. Here's James then with Sabrina Carpenter, otherwise known as Luxy. And he does hit MMR on the side pod and nearly spin himself. Here's Luxy then, who's going to head into the chicane, turn 6 and 7, and he gets hit by MMR. He goes off and deep, and then MMR came through on the racing line. Here's AJ Curtis then, the Season 3 champion of the 23 tier. So he got on top of the curb on turn 5, spun, and then he just careered into the Alpine, driving the racing line as if there's no one there, and he has hit Joshua Grow, and now both Alpines, with both drivers as Joshua's, now down at the back of the pack. Here's Joe's move, then he's going to go around the outside of Faye. It's a great move. He nearly got contact there, but after doing that move, all three of those cars went out. So he essentially passed about 4 cars there through that sequence of corners. Anyway, we're back with the live action then. We have Joe and Tame in the Ferraris, 6th, 7th and 8th. 6th, 7th and 8th? No, 7th and 8th, should I say. We have RJ just behind Joe. Joe's trying to catch up to his teammate. Joe on the hard tyres here. He's one of the only people in the midfield at the moment on the hard tyres. Sabrina Carpenter Luxy making a dive bomb and a half, but Joe hanging it around the outside. 2 former rivals from ALR battling it out. Joe heading into turn 2? Either way, Joe's going to do a switch back and get around the outside of Luxy heading round turn 3, but he just about makes it. But no, he doesn't. Luxy gets back up ahead, heading up into turn 4. Here comes MMR then, who's going through, and someone just cut the chicane there. I think that was cured. And here's AJC then, here on lap 5, and he's just watching Joshua Grow spin. It looks like he may have made contact with Glock Baby, so that's unfortunate for him. So Glock Baby, otherwise known as Faye, causing contact with Joshua. And again, more trouble for the Alpines as Joe locks the rear tyre, as the Red Bull locks the front tyre. So the Red Bull, I'm not too sure who that is. I think that might be Hazy, who knows. Here's James, and he's watching Faye cut the corner on the pit entry. So here we are running on board with Faye, who's just ahead of Joshua Grows. You can see in the mirror on the top. Josh is going to go for the move on the inside. Glock Baby's going to turn in, and they make contact. They lock wheels, and Joshua Grows shoves himself and Faye off the track. Now, back further down the order with the 2 Ferraris. Further up the order with the 2 Ferraris, should I say. Here on lap 9, Tame and Joe. So Tame, the ALR Season 1 champion. Joe, a winner in Season 1. And very competitive in ALR as well, but we're here in Formula Asphalt where Joe has a championship in Season 2 in F1 23, but he's now catching up to Tame. He's going to go around the outside of turn 4. That's never going to work. He gets forced wide, and he's just about ahead. No, he isn't, because Tame's going to ride round the outside of him and keep the position on Joe with those more grippy medium tyres. Great racing between the Scuderia Ferrari cars. We skip on to lap 10, so Tame came into the pits a lap beforehand, so we're here on lap 11, should I say. As coming out the pits is Harris. Down the inside goes Hazy. Joe's going to try and hang it around the outside. Joe not giving this one up on the Red Bull. Joe knows the Red Bull very well as he drove a Red Bull in his first ever league race, but now he's going to go down into turn 2 on the inside of the Red Bull, here in his Ferrari, and he's now going to try and pinch him on the inside at turn 3 and accelerate to turn 4 ahead of Hazy. And now we're under a safety car because Hazy and Harrison collided. So it's Mint Castrol ahead of Exxon Gamer. Then comes Cured. Then comes MMR Racing to complete the top 4. It's a V-Carb 1-4. And then it's a battle between the Ferraris and the Hasses on the restart, it looks like, because we have Tame in the Ferrari, ahead of James in the Haas, ahead of Joe in the Ferrari, ahead of Luxy in the Haas. And then the Alpines are battling with everyone else in the bottom 5 of the running order at the moment, as we have AJC ahead of one Alpine known as Josh Grove. Then we have RJ ahead of Joshua Knott in the other Alpine. And then we have Glock Baby in last of the running order. We're back on the restart as to the inside of Tame already goes James. So James on the move, both Hasses on a move. So Tame being passed by everyone. Luxy's going to make a move on all 3 of them. Luxy passes every other Ferrari-powered car in this race and gets up into P4, should I say. No, it was P5. Someone pitted, I think, as Tame looks like he's disconnected, sadly enough. So that's a shame for the Scuderia. So now it's all up to Joe, who's now going to defend from James. Rally outside at turn 4. Turn 4, should I say? I was about to say 5. Here's turn 5. But Joe and James getting very close. These two have a habit of getting very close together, as they did in ALR in Season 1 in Monaco. And they're getting close again here. It's around the outside for James. Is he going to make it? Joe's going to carry the momentum. Go a little bit wide, but he kind of got forced off wide there. And now James is going to try and make a move on him. But Joe not giving in. He's now going to go into turn 12. James to the inside. He again barges Joe off wide. And Joe does a wheelie over the gutter. That's incredible. So Joe versus James. James shoves Joe over the gutter. And Joe is still ahead of James. He's been holding him up pretty much the entire lap through lap 20. And now they head down the straight. James does get ahead of Joe and shoves him off. He's not happy with his driving and he brake checks him. And Ashley Curtis nearly hits into Joe down the inside for RJ. He's going to make 3 places in one corner. Joe shoves James off the track. Now 4 cars are nearly into the side of each other. Glock Baby's going to try and take all these positions. Joe hits the back of James, goes wide, and that is absolute malarkey for the pair of them. So Joe hit James and is now down all those positions. AJ Curtis was in that mix, but he nearly hit Joe, and in doing so, he wasn't able to capitalize on any positions apart from Joe, who's got no front wing. On board again with Faye, who was one of 2 drivers, the other driver being RJ, one of 2 drivers to gain 3 positions in lap 21. Here's James, who lost out in that malarkey with Joe, and Faye nearly spins. James is going to go to the outside. Heading down into turn 12. Down the inside for Faye. Faye's going to run him out wide, and James tries to rejoin the track, and they both end up in the wall. Joe and James in the wall. That is absolute malarkey for the pair of them. Joe. As we hear James on the radio there. Joe heading into the pits. We're under the safety car with 4 laps to go here in Formula Asphalt. Joe in 8th. Ashley Curtis back up into 7th. Faye still was in 6th, now it's in 7th. As now we have, on the safety car restart, we lost footage. So we have Joe going past Faye. And then we have Joe also getting past Exxon Gamer, who disconnected ages ago as well. But it looks like it will be the McLaren of Cured, who will win here in Hungary ahead of Mint, Castrel, and not Xeon Gamer, MMR, should I say. As Joe goes over the line in 8th after a very chaotic race. What a race here in Hungary. That is the order, and that is the championship mess after that incredible race in Formula Asphalt Hungary. I hope you enjoyed this remastered commentary. I'm going to try and do more of these in the future. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one, and goodbye.